welcome back. Welcome to this afternoon session. And my session is called Enhancing Career Opportunities for Young People. I'm Nadra Mirza. I used to be one of the deans at the University of Bradford, but then I retired. And I must tell you, I've never been busier. I'm the deputy chair of Airedale Hospital Trust, so that's my health interest. And my education interest is still continuing in my role as a strategic advisor to the Vice Chancellor and Deputy Vice Chancellor at Leeds Trinity University. And that's quite an interesting little university in a place called Horsforth, which is literally 10 miles from Leeds and 10 miles away from Bradford. We have one of the few university-led teacher training provisions still in existence, and we provide over 45% of Bradford's school teachers. So you can understand what a big job we have for ourselves, considering all the work that Born in Bradford is coming up with. And I'm also involved with Born in Bradford. I was one of the founding members many years ago and chaired the Advocacy and Scrutiny Committee. And that committee was specifically set up so that parents of the children involved in the study had a say in how the studies were being run. I'm not quite sure if that still exists, but that was our very early community engagement. So, back to today. What we have heard through the day is how important our children are, and that every child literally matters. But there's so many aspects of a child's life that we've got to be thinking about. But predominantly, what I've learned from today is whatever we do has to involve the children and their families. And we can do that however young or however old they are. Okay? And we're talking about careers and career opportunities. And our panel today, one of the things that they'll be thinking about is how do we empower young people, their families, their influencers to understand the world of work and to prepare themselves for it and what we can do. So, without further ado, I'm going to go over to my fabulous panel here, who will basically say who they are and a little bit about how they and their organization contributes to our theme of career opportunities today. So first I have Frida.
Hello, hi everybody. Really great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me as a panel member. So my name is Frida Zaman. I am the Local Development Lead for Bradford. I work for Business in the Community, which I'm not sure if many of you know about. It's one of the Prince's Trust charities. We are slightly different to many of the mainstream charities in that we are a member-led charity. So we have over 600 corporate members who actually pay us membership fees, which allows us to do the work that we do. And our whole ethos is about driving responsible business. So we work with these corporate members to help them to really create a baseline for where they're at in terms of their sustainability measures. We work towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We also do lots of work around race, age, gender and well-being, diversity as well. We also campaign heavily in terms of our relationship with government, and we have a huge public affairs section who do lots of work on that to ensure that we can get changes in the law to reflect all of those equities and equalities that we want to drive in society. And our ethos is really about ensuring that we have healthy communities, and in order to have healthy businesses, we need to have healthy communities. We were created 40 years ago, so this year we are celebrating our 40th year. And it was actually out of the Brixton and Toxteth riots, if any of you are old enough to remember those, and the kind of situation that they created and the realisation they created among society and amongst business, in that business really need to be invested in rebuilding communities and the regeneration of society. Because actually that's where their customers come from, and that's also where their talent pool comes from. So really delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Frida. So next we have Holly.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Really pleased to be here. So I'm Holly Frampton and I'm the Social Mobility Lead at PwC. So PwC are a professional services firm with offices across the world, one of which is here in Bradford. I work as part of the wider inclusion community and wellbeing team. So my role at PwC is to really look after everything social mobility related, from recruitment, so making sure we're recruiting people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds into the business, development progression, so looking at once they're in the organisation, how do we help them progress at the same rate as their peers. Community engagement, which is a big part of what we've been doing in Bradford. So we've been a cornerstone employer in Bradford Opportunity Area since 2017. And finally, advocacy, so just advocating for the importance of the issue of social mobility. So as I said, we've been involved in the Opportunity Area since 2017. One of our former PwC senior partners, Will Richardson, has been on the Opportunity Area Partnership Board since 2017. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today, so I'm covering for it. And then we've also had a number of enterprise advisors providing strategic advice to schools on their careers programmes. And finally, we offer a big schools engagement programme here in Bradford. So it's available to all secondary schools and FE colleges within Bradford. And we've worked with a large number of schools on things like work experience, insight days and events, careers talks, and volunteering. And our staff going out volunteering and offering skills sessions to young people. So that's how we've been involved. And thank you very much for inviting me along to speak.
Great, thank you, Holly. Lee?
So I'm Lee Turner, and it's been a massive privilege and the best job I've ever had in government for the last 5 years to be leading Bradford Opportunity Area. I've now got Doncaster and North Yorkshire Coast. I think the biggest thing for me is it depends too much on the postcode and where you're born, the opportunities that are in your life. And that's not right. Some of the things that we need to do is, some of the people aren't aware of what they're not aware of. So how do we kind of get children to realise what opportunities there is out there? How do we start to network in children that, because of some children where they're born, those networks are created for them? So that's the big bit for me, and we can't do this alone. So I'm looking to people in the audience, and I'm looking to the pledge that we've got at the back of the room. All of us together, we might be able to do something to do this, but we're not going to be able to do this individually. So I think my first thing is it'd be great if people could put their organisations down and think about what is it that we can do in this place. We started doing bits already, and lots of people doing bits. We started working more with primary schools, starting to say, when you're at secondary school, that might be a little bit late. Can we start to really open up the world of work to these children so they've got a better understanding? We've been doing things with the Government Equalities Office to get STEM subjects taught into school and really opening their eyes about what amazing jobs there are in STEM. Just today I've been speaking to someone who, they're going to send a satellite from Bradford up into space, which is just absolutely, there's all these brilliant things, but until we can get people to kind of be aware of them, we're still going to be struck with what the barriers we've faced over the last 10 years. So that's the bit that for me, let's start opening people's eyes. Let's take it away from where you're born. It's more about what you can do. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lee. I do think that the accident of where you're born really shapes your future, and I suppose it's our role to stop that happening. So, last but not least, Alex.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today, everybody. So, resonate with everything that panellists have said so far. So, I am the Director of the Careers and Technical Education for Bradford. CTE is a concept that we use to really help young people from the age of primary all the way through to HE to plan, explore and prepare for their careers. The team that I have are absolutely amazing in terms of that pathways approach. And what we do know is that when schools are really fully engaged in the CTE programme, which works with PwC, which works with our members of community, and also the GEO project that you just mentioned there, the World of Wondrous STEM that's coming up from the OA funding, it's just magical. Having a vast range of opportunities in Bradford is amazing because it's actually out there, but how my team's job is to try to bring that together into one place to make it easier for our young people to access and also for our schools.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Before I kick off with a couple of questions and then open it up to you, can you just have a show of hands about who's in the audience? Teachers? Head teachers? Local government, further education colleges, University? Oh, great. Employers? Okay, so we have some idea of people's interests here. So I hope to get some really interesting questions and comments later on. I find that living and working, I came up to Bradford for a 3-year action research project funded by the DFE, and I have now been here 43 years. It's the sort of place you don't leave. Once you know about it, once you come, you love it and you want to be here, you want to be part of it. But through my career, and even now, I hear a lot of people saying, oh, communities are hard to reach, these children, their families are hard to reach. And I think, no, it's the other way around. Those of us in employment, in education, are the ones who are hard to reach. So I want to throw that open. And another thing is aspirations. Oh, our children and our families have low aspirations. I don't think they have low aspirations. And I mentioned that myself, and a teacher bounced back to me not long ago and said, no, it's we who have low aspirations for our children. So we've also mentioned today among our panel the sorts of things we have on offer and the fact that young people need to know a lot more about these things. So my question to the panel is, what do we need to do to make our own organizations more approachable and more accessible so that teachers and those influencing young people and young people themselves know what we have on offer? And the other is, how do we shape our offer with young people? Who'd like to go first? Holly?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Good.
So I think in terms of making our offer accessible, what we really need to remember as employers is how busy schools are and how busy school leaders are. And actually engaging with schools can be really difficult when you've got careers leaders that are also probably teaching full-time or extremely busy with other pressures, especially during COVID. So what we've really tried to do with our schools engagement programme is make it as easy as possible for teachers to engage with, and we've tried to leverage existing relationships with charities that we work with and the opportunity area and the West Yorkshire Combined Authority to try and help us put us in touch with schools that can then engage with our programmes. I think the other key thing for us is making our programmes attractive to schools. So the more that employers can do things like link back to the Gatsby benchmarks, link to the curriculum, link to the skills builder, essential skills, the easier it's then going to be for a teacher to really see the benefits of engaging with an employer programme. I think going back to something that was said earlier, early engagement is key. So a recent Teach First Careers report recommended that primary school careers activity is really enhanced. And we're actually looking at our primary school programme and how we can better engage with primary schools at the minute. And I think the other thing is about offering students the opportunity and schools the opportunity to come in and see employer offices, which has obviously been really difficult during COVID. And we had a fully virtual programme for a couple of years. But we've now got very much back to that in-person activity and in-person engagement, and seeing the faces of the young people when they come into our offices in Bradford, Leeds, Manchester and across the country is absolutely fantastic. So I think allowing young people the opportunity to get into offices, meet employers and see the fact that this is for them and this is something that they can do. I don't think they lack aspiration at all. I think we just need to show them what's available and make them aware of that. So getting students into offices, offering things like work experience, and whether you're a large employer like us, appreciate we've got a lot of resources to do this, a big team, or a smaller employer who can only take one student on a work experience, I think everyone can contribute. All businesses of all sizes can contribute in their own way.
Thank you. Anyone else like to answer that? Alex?
I think just in terms of the work that actually happens, you've mentioned work experience, you've mentioned the Gatsby benchmarks, a number of those things have been mentioned. I think if each school has a really clear careers framework and pathway that they can work to is super important. I think engaging those young people, because we talked about neurodiversity in one of the other sessions, each young person will resonate differently. Our model is very business-led. We have an honest conversation. Our businesses have an honest conversation with our educators and our head teachers around what really needs to happen to shape the curriculum, how you can contextualise that learning within lessons, as well as have that careers intervention alongside that. Speaking to a HMI the other day around the training that they've just had and how they're going to start to investigate through Ofsted more around the careers work that's going on in schools, how our young people perceive careers, and the wealth of work that goes into that, from the curriculum down to our IAC support, down to our work experience and working with employers that are open. We have a number of SMEs that are willing to engage. They just need a little bit of help to do that. It's not as easy for them, as Holly mentioned, when they're smaller employers, but equally how the world of technical education is changing and how we need to see that there is that level 2 to level 3 progression and make it simpler. Look at the units that we're teaching, how they transcend into post-16 and then into HE. Make it really visible about how we use our LMI data to really open up the doors of what's available to our young people is super important. There's so many ways to engage, from teacher CPD, from also working with SMEs, to how we can sort of break down some of those barriers. We do often talk about some basic things that come up time and time again about those essential skills that young people need, but it's also beyond that how they can look and feel that it is a job for them and someone's in that workplace and it's familiar to them. But equally it goes to the parents as well, how we can break down some of those barriers. If we look at the work that's happened with Bradford Manufacturing Weeks over the last 5 years and the engagement that's opened up the doors of many of the manufacturers, that really then people can see, what would I look and feel like, as Holly mentioned in office tours, how does that look like me? Can I see myself there? What about our entrepreneurial Bradford young people that are actually looking at how they could make a start in life and what are the pathways for them? So I could go on and on and on if you get me on a roll, but really if we look at our board membership, we've got 15 sectors, so 9 different boards, 86 people, employers only, come to the table alongside our HE colleagues, alongside our FE colleagues and our schools to say, this is what we're doing in the classroom, how can we make it better? There's so much great work going on, but it's how we get it out to more people. Lee, did you want to add anything?
I think just the question, what can our organisation do? I think some of it is coming to speak to people. So coming out of Whitehall and having conversations like this. Well, I brought ministers to Bradford before. I want to bring more ministers to Bradford in the future. And when I do, for me, it's 2 things. I think one, is there a simple ask that we can ask of the minister? Because they want to come and they want to do something. What's that simple ask that they could go away and feel like they're part of this, that they're with us on this journey, they're trying to improve things? And then what would be the collective ask of a minister? Do we have a collective understanding of, here's what it actually, if you can change one thing in Bradford for us, what's that? Have we got a collective voice on all of this? So that's the bit that I want to bring, but then a collective kind of right, so what's that aspect of them? What's that aspect? Have we got that collective voice?
Pretty good.
I just wanted to add that more than anything else, we are an organisation that is a convener, so we bring people together, we bring businesses and schools and educators and people within the community and within Bradford as a place together so that we can actually all collaborate and do the best for our people. I think, one thing, if I can take the opportunity, Lee, to sort of say that in terms of, from a ministerial perspective, I think schools really, really need the resource to develop careers because what I've found in terms of my school engagement, particularly in Keighley, is that it's very hard for careers leads to actually get in touch with me, to even respond to an email or a phone call, because they're so stretched. And despite the fact that I have lots of businesses I engage with in Bradford who would be more than happy to come in, showcase careers, talk about enterprise, entrepreneurship, what the journey looks like, what the barriers are, the access to employment, what sort of roles they have on offer, really go in depth into what they can offer to the children of Bradford, the young people of Bradford. It's just that the careers leads just don't have the time to invest in actually putting those sessions together. And I think that, if there's anything that schools in Bradford need, it's more resource to actually ensure that we can get employers in front of young people so that they can be meeting those Gatsby benchmarks and really just give them a fighting chance and a chance that they deserve, because we all deserve to be our best.
Really well said, Frida. I'm going to throw a question out to the audience. We've heard quite a lot about the fantastic work that our panel does with schools and the organizations do with young people in schools. But I'm thinking, are we doing enough for those young people who aren't in schools? For example, gypsies, travelers, boat people, show people, and is waiting till they get to school to learn about employment opportunities, career opportunities, is that a bit late? Should we be doing something else that our wonderful panel can take back to their organizations? Any thoughts?
Hi, thank you. I'm Daniel Ware, police officer locally in Bradford. I think from a criminal justice point of view, the frustration is that, especially with young people, they're making choices as children, which may see them engage with the criminal justice system, and then the adverse consequences that has with them and stays with them, and the inequality and the injustice of that is, as a 13, 14, 15-year-old person, you can have an interaction with the criminal justice system which then inhibits and constrains so markedly your life chances and employability and even the careers you can go into later on in life. And, that's probably a societal challenge, and how fair is that people are judged as adults on the decisions they make and mistakes they make as children. So that would be one challenge I think we face, because disproportionately, unfortunately, we have a high number of young people that do come into contact with the criminal justice system in Bradford.
I heard a statistic recently, I can't remember the actual figure, but more young men of South Asian heritage are in the criminal justice system than they are in the higher education system. That really is a wrong, isn't it? Any other comments before we go back to the panel? In black.
Hi panel, my name is Lisa. I'm from Feversham Primary Academy, and teaching is my second career. I started my first career as an advertising photographer, which is interesting. When I went for that interview, they did tell me they don't employ women, but I didn't let that stop me. But what I've got, what perhaps teachers don't have, is I've got a career history. So I bring into the classroom people who work for Getty, who are sports photographers, to my year 6 children. And there's a massive buzz because I'm bringing into the classroom a professional person who can talk about their career, who can talk about their success. So I think it's like tapping into people like myself who have previous occupations, who have a whole network through a lived experience, and bringing those into the classroom, not necessarily to talk on a formal basis, but talk about their practice, what they do and how they got there. Because that was so valuable when my year 6 children, they just couldn't stop talking about photography and Getty and natural history photography and sports photography. So that will be my observation, is to get real people into the classroom via the teachers who've already got experience there. Thank you.
I would like to say that people from a gypsy background may be having a person like Tyson Fury, who's from their background, seeing them go that high, showing that the potential is to the sun and stars, that making sure that people from their backgrounds come to schools and inspire them, and maybe show that the potential is endless, because I'm a young person and I don't see many people of colour coming into my area, and maybe it limits their potential. So maybe that could be an area where you could focus on maybe bringing people from their own kind into schools to inspire them to do their best.
Okay, thank you. The lady behind.
I'm Beth, I'm from Stella Trust, I'm a youth employment specialist. And a lot of the clients I work with tend to say things like, I didn't really engage with school because my mental health was so bad. I didn't bother with school because I didn't think I was going to live that long to get a job. And I think that's one of the first barriers for a lot of the people that I'm working with, is that they can't get a career because the grades are up and because they don't have the wellbeing tools to keep themselves well enough to be in a job. And I think that a big part of being in careers is about having those wellbeing tools and being able to be mentally well enough to engage with school and to be engaging in career planning.
Great, thank you for that. Before I move over to the left or your right, can we have some comments from our panel who'd like to respond to what we've heard? Holly, for
Yeah, I was just going to go back to the point you made around mental health and a few things that we're doing around that. We're working with a charity called Place to Be on a programme where I'm sure they may be in some of your schools, but they have mental health advisors in schools, and we're working with them on quite a big programme around race awareness and the impact on mental health in schools. And it's just been really eye-opening to see the impact that COVID has had, in particular on young people's mental health over the last couple of years. We've also been running a programme in Bradford where we've provided mental health first aid training to a number of schools, teachers, but also youth workers as well in Bradford. And we've offered that course, and teachers have been telling us that they've been waiting, months and months and years to get onto these courses. And actually, we've got a trained mental health first aid delivery person within our organisation who's done that. So I think in total we've trained about 60 people in looking out for young people's mental health, and I think it is so important because, exactly as you said, you can't engage with a discussion about careers unless your mental health is in a good place to be able to do that. So we want to be able to tackle that as well as obviously educate young people about the careers that are available.
I was also going to add, I think in addition, I completely agree, we need Maslow's basic starting points around safety, security in place before we get to learning. Most of us in the room know that from education. In terms of where our young people are and where our young people go, I think we need to understand that there is a number of options and pathways for young people. There's a traditional route that many people have gone through, which may be to go to FE, then higher education, then into a profession. There are so many other routes and ways that young people can develop, and they need to see and feel that those are available to them, and that any starting point is a starting point. The Kickstart scheme in Bradford was very, very strong. It was only time-bound, a national scheme, but 600 young people came through the door, of which over 60% of those people have secured full-time employment. But those sort of schemes are time-bound, and it's a real shame that we don't have something that's more permanent for young people. Having gone through COVID, young people have seen themselves displaced, felt displaced, and need to sort of step onto the ladder. And what does that look like for them? When some of the offers out there are for those that attain level 2 by the time they're 16. As we know in Bradford, it's not the case. Many of our young children don't attain level 2 by 16 and equally by 19. So making sure those alternative pathways are visible to them and to schools to show them the different routes in is super important as well.
Absolutely agree, because I think we need to be thinking about those who aren't in school as well as those who are easy to meet in school. Yeah. Frida?
I just want to touch on a couple of points. So on the issue of, we talk about hard to reach communities. At the beginning of June, we actually conducted a Seeing is Believing event where we invited around 17 national CEOs to Bradford. And this is something that is probably the mainstay of our organisation. Over our 40 years, we've invited 28,000 CEOs to events like that, to various places within the UK, because actually what we believe is that in order to really see, feel, touch, hear, sense, and really perceive what is going on in a place, you really have to be immersed in it with all your senses to actually understand what it is that people face on a daily basis, the barriers, the challenges, the uphill struggles, and accesses to finance, to employment, to help, support, mental health, whatever it might be. And actually, as a result of that, we have a raft of activity that many of our CEOs have committed to, both on a personal level and through their organisations, as a result of that visit. And so we are working to kind of ensure that we can make sure that the reverberations of that visit are felt widely across Bradford and continue to be developed. And the other topic I wanted to touch on was the issue of representation. I'm a Muslim woman of Pakistani descent, so that's three of the protected characteristics. And I worked for another organisation, a national organisation, before coming to Business in the Community for 24 years. And it was only in the last couple of years of my time there that I realised that justice was everything I was fighting for throughout my career and throughout my life. And I was very fortunate because I was able to create their first ethnic minorities staff network, which thankfully is still going strong. And throughout my career, I didn't actually have anyone that I could look up to that looked like me. And for 22 years of the 24-year career, there wasn't even another woman in a hijab in that organisation. And I guess I'm just the resilient type, and I've always been quite the one that sort of broke the mold. And I think I get that from my father, who was first generation in this country. And I think it's really important to have role models, effective role models, wherever we are, in whatever spaces we occupy and whatever engagements we have in life, because that is what demonstrates to us that if that person can do it, then so can I. And as a domestic abuse survivor, this is the reason why I sit on the board for CAWAC in Keighley, because I want to be the voice for other women, and I want other women and men who go through domestic abuse to recognise that there are role models out there. There are people who have been through this and who have come out the other side and are stronger as a result of it. And that there is help and advice available, and it's just about finding that strength within yourself. So definitely, role models, we need more, many, many more.
Well said, Frida. Yes, and we'll talk about role models in a minute, because I think that's an interesting point. Lee, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just something, and again, I've been mulling on this. I think what a lot I've heard, the position I'm in, I get to see a lot of the different projects. So you were talking about the serious youth violence. We've got a colleague in here from Department of Education. Bradford's got funding, and it's got a programme starting to tackle that. We've talked about children and young people's social emotional mental health. There's Department of Health and Social Care that's running a pilot in Bradford looking at this. There's MHCLG that are looking at a pilot of this. There's somebody from Cabinet Office. So I think we're picking the right issues, or that's what I'm here to address. The bit that isn't happening is that connecting. Because I don't think people are aware of what's on offer. We're not getting out into the community, and we're having enough of those conversations. So that needs to change. It's been difficult over the past 2 years to have those really in-depth conversations. So I think one thing for me is you need to start holding us to account over some of that. You need to start by saying, come and speak to our communities, come and understand this better, because if we don't, we won't.
Thank you, Lee. Would anyone like to respond to Lee? Gentlemen. Okay, comment.
I think it's marvellous that you pointed out that there's a satellite bid in Bradford going into space.
Your camera a bit closer.
I think it's marvellous that you're commenting on the fact that we've got a satellite going into space. But just for the record, we have parts that were made 50 years ago that are now parked on the moon. I think you've forgotten about all that. We have people who are educated in Bradford who are now monitoring the Voyager spacecraft as they leave our universe. And we've been doing that for the last 30 years. We have a whole plethora of aerospace, robotic, drone, industries within striking distance. And in fact, in Keighley we have 2 engineering companies that Boeing have five companies worldwide. They're allowed to self-certify their own products. And 2 of those are in Keighley, and both of those have CEOs who are female, and both of those ladies started on the shop floor. We forget about all that. There's loads of fantastic history that should be feeding into our education system. And me and colleague here have been bashing away at it for 30 odd years. Well, like our work here, it's just finished. That's all that. Thank you.
I think that's a really important comment or bit of knowledge there that so many of us don't have. But if you think about all the firsts that have happened in Bradford and where we have been over the last 20 years in the development of cancer drugs, for example, that's just one thing.
Hi, my name is Naz Kazmi. I'm the Chief Exec of Keighley Association for Women and Children's Centre, known as COAC. Thank you for supporting the centre, Frida, and we've really welcomed you on board. What I find with education, I've been in my position now for over 13 years, and what I see lots and lots of barriers. We are based in the Central Ward of Keighley. There's lots of issues, there's antisocial behaviour, drugs, scams, everything, whatever you can think. But what I feel for the young people, that you look at activities, out of school activities, there isn't many available. And like when, if I sort of go back into my years when we were younger, there was lots of activities like those clubs and things. But what I find that due to austerity, lots of activities have sort of disappeared in those areas where it's really, really needed. And you're wanting us to connect, you want to aspire the young people. You've got to give them something to aspire to. And what I find is that there's a lot of distance within the BAME community, especially women and girls. And I feel that they'd like to come forward to do the STEM subjects. We've done a couple of pilot projects. We've worked with STEM. We've gone to go higher. We've worked with Leeds Trinity. We've worked at University of Bradford. But what I find is that there's still lots of barriers for young girls, especially Asian young girls, to aspire to become engineers or anything around the STEM subject. What I find is that there needs to be a bit more wrap around for those individuals who really want to excel into those subjects or into those careers. There needs to be more investment for that wraparound service. You can come and tell a child, you can say, right, there's a pathway to get to this, but you need to be doing this and this. But I think it's having those opportunities and those pathways that are very much orientated to take to that success. We've had a successful story. We had a young girl who came on placement, but then she didn't do really well with her exams, with her A-levels. She was an A-star student, but she didn't get an A-star. She got an A, but she wasn't happy with it because she wanted an A-star. So we helped her. So she stayed on placement, and then after placement, I offered her a job. So she was with me for 1 year, so she worked with me all the way through. I opened her doors to lots of leadership programs, I opened doors to universities, I opened lots and lots of opportunities for her to be able to see the bigger, wider picture of the career that she wanted to go into. And can I just say that she's been very, very successful. She did get her A-stars eventually, and she did manage to get to University of Leeds to do engineering. So it's about offering that service, and it's that hand-holding process that you've got to go with certain individuals and communities to get them where they need to be.
Well said, thank you. I wonder if anyone on the panel would like to comment on that. I think it's something about a different type of role that we need to think about in our organisations and a different time that we intervene. Any thoughts? Alex?
Just in terms of what resonates with me, is that outside the school gates is super important, but equally you touched on cultural capital. And without that cultural capital and without that hand-holding and that young person having a wider network of people, and it shouldn't be for them to find it should be there for them. So we're outside of their barriers, of their perceived barriers of a postcode or the end of the street, what does that look like? I haven't got all the answers, but it completely resonates.
Perhaps this is where role modelling and mentoring comes in for all our organisations to do that a bit more proactively than we actually do. Okay, any other comments? Oh, Chad.
I'm quickly say something. I agree with Naz. There is nothing in our local area, so that's why people get involved in crime, because there's nowhere else to go. County lines, there's people where they get influenced because they're bored, they have nothing to do. Like, we ask councillors endlessly, and when it comes to voting time, that's when they only come to us. And I feel like people should be our councillors, and do not only come to us when they need us. More needs to be done for the youth because there's nothing in our area. Usually, after school, people will be online, which is more dangerous than the outside world. And more needs to be done because we say endlessly, but nothing happens. And if there is, and it's far away and inaccessible, you have to travel a long way. So that's why more needs to be done for the youth. And then when they've gone to be involved in the criminal justice system, they might fail the GCSEs, and you can't apply for a loan anymore if you fail your maths. So then all your doors are closed off. So then you stay involved in the criminal justice system, and then your children might see that and be influenced by it. So then it creates that endless circle. So I think we need to start at the base root, which is by putting activities for the youth, because that's where we are the youth, and there's nothing for me, so I have to find things to do. So I think it's called the local government, and they need to take action now.
So what would you like to see? Tell us, what would you like to see? What would your peers like to see us do?
Any youth clubs, like engaging activities that can help you build skills for life, like leadership skills, communication skills, like any skills that will help you in your further life. People might want to become doctors and lawyers, they might want to become a policeman, and having them positive like role models, because we had the deputy mayor, she is a person of colour, and she really inspired me because it showed me that people of colour can do things and can create change. So it's all these putting the thread to the loophole and putting it together, making sure that our community is not divided, but it's like united. First of all, what needs to be done is the council need to actually see and to step up something for the students and end this circle, because there is so much antisocial behaviour going on and it needs to be ended.
Thank you. And well said. I hope we see more of you. Yes? Any comment?
I just want to say, come and speak to me, please. Let's do this.
There you go. Jan.
It follows on quite nicely, actually, what I was going to say, so it's quite good, the guy behind went first. So I'm from Keighley Creative, which is an arts and creative club in Keighley. It's a bit of the Keighley mafia here, isn't it? That's right, Keighley's very entrepreneurial, creative, and wants things to change. Obviously the whole history of Keighley and the district is about creative and entrepreneurial people, going back to the history of the mills and things like that, textile industries, engineering. But a couple of things that we've got, we have start-up artist studios. Some of those people are people who haven't been able to work in mainstream jobs for mental health reasons. Some are people who've had, want to look at a career change in life, maybe follow something that was their passion, like photography, and try and turn it into a way of earning a living. So we've got at the moment 15. We've just got a Townsville grant to buy a large ex-department store, and in there we will have 45 units, hopefully in the next year to 18 months. And although we're based in Keighley, obviously we're primarily trying to get Keighley people, particularly young people. But the other thing that we have got from September with us is the Bradford Film Unit, and that's funded by Channel 4 and Bradford Council. And it's very much about young people learning every and any skills to do with film and television. So that could be script writing, lighting, electronics, sound, and it's also about helping young people form partnerships where they stand more chance of getting employment in the future. Lots of people who work for television offices are self-employed, so the kind of resilience skills you might need, the partnerships who you might partner with to have a team approach to bidding for contracts, all those things as well. And that's very much aimed at the young people in the district, be it something where they come and learn communication skills or something where they look at maybe having a career in the future.
Thank you for that. Last question for that lady in the black, and then I've got to go back to my panel.
Jan, I'd love to help you with that because I've been an award-winning photographer, so I've got loads of contacts. So let's swap numbers because I'm absolutely on board with something like that. So yeah, that's all to say.
Thank you. We've just got 1.5 minutes left, so we've heard a lot today about what the organisations our panel members work for do. Also what's going on in Bradford and in Keighley, the creativity. There's also been some dissatisfaction that we're not doing enough at the right time, in the right places. So I want to just go back for final quick comment from each of my panel members. What are you going to take away from what you've heard today? And I know today hasn't finished. What are you going to take back to your organisations to actually do? So this time next year, when we come back to review our year, you'll all be able to say, we said this, we did this. Who wants to go?
Alex. CT is on a journey. We've always known that. So some of you may have heard of ICE before, and ICE has been around for a decade, so it's grown into making sure there's that primary provision. But equally, the ambition is to work with all young people in the district of how we're hearing how that would benefit young people. Primarily, we do work within the school gates, but it's tapping into that external, outside of the school gates with our partner organisations as well. So I think for me, it's just sort of growing and seeing people we can connect with in the audience, names that I've heard but faces I've not seen, or people I've only seen on a screen because of COVID. So there's definitely, I think we all know there's more work to do for our young people.
Thank you. Lee, quickly.
So again, I hope this is the start of the conversation on all of this. We've heard lots about Keighley. It's going to be one of the wards that we're doing more in. We want to kind of work at ward level, get a real understanding on all of this. I think second, we need to bring data into all of this. The bit I was saying about bringing ministers, if we can bring to ministers and show things that are evidence-based and we've got data behind them, they absolutely love that. I think the bit then back to me is as much for you to keep coming to me saying, this is what we need to do different, this is how we need to keep working different there, because I won't know that myself, I'm only going to get that from you and the audience.
Brilliant. Holly?
So I think from what I've heard today, there's still a lot that we can do as employers, and there's still a lot of young people that need employer engagement opportunities. And there's also an issue with some of the things we talked about not being joined up. So I think there's two things for us: continuing to grow our employer engagement and schools engagement offering in Bradford, encouraging other employers to get involved and supporting them in that, and working together collaboratively with all the other organisations involved. And I think being signed up to the pledge for the Alliance for Life Chances gives us a really good opportunity to do that and work together on it.
Thank you, Holly.
So since my role is across Bradford, I'm really keen to work with anyone and everyone in this room and beyond to improve and transform the life chances of every young person in Bradford. As it is not just the youngest city in the UK, but the youngest city in Europe. So it has the highest population of 16 to 25-year-olds of any city in Europe. And that is a massive accolade and also represents a massive pool of talent that we really need to develop and give the utmost opportunities to, so that they can really be their personal best. So I really look forward to engaging with some people in this room around setting up a youth provision in Keighley and ensuring that young people have access to understanding their own self-belonging in an area, to understand their own identity and building on that, and ensuring that they are able to secure interventions and exposure to really effective role models within the area. I have actually been to a couple of the events at the Bradford Literature Festival as well, and met a couple of people who are involved in media. And actually, where we have young people who may be doing health and beauty courses, they may not actually think about developing a career in media as a result of that. And actually, there's so many diverse options for every career pathway that we really need to kind of sometimes open people's eyes to these as well. So really keen to work with Keighley Creative as well, and with the local police force to ensure that we can demonstrate to people that there are other avenues that they can secure and where they can actually learn new skills, develop themselves and really succeed in their own life and be actually the role models to others, because actually we don't always, we often underestimate the power of one conversation and how it can change someone's life.
Thank you very much. So we need to coordinate, communicate and collaborate. A lot more of that. So thank you all and thank you.